Whoever wants to come to Hive, they have to meet who? Esther. So that's how a founder's mind is so tricky like that, right? Because it's more like a balancing act, right? You have expectations, your own expectations. Then you have expectations of the founder, the investor, the employee, the employees, right? Your family members, your spouse. And then there is you identifying that this is this. So you have left all the other roles outside. You no longer go home on time. You're no longer a father. You're no longer a spouse. You're no longer, if you're very faith-based, you no longer serve in your mosque or church. Everything is, you have isolated yourself. You come in at 8, leave at midnight. Or even sometimes stay over the office depending on the demands. If it is you're applying for a grant or anything, right? You stay overnight until the next day. So if they say Hive Colab, then Marion is the person you have to look for. No delegation of duties, no resting, no going out to the parties. I don't know the last time you attended any party of any sort. You have never even taken a vacation as much as it's probably been talked about in your innovation hubs, that you must take rest, okay? And so you have become that. So every setback that you have had in your institution has had a hit on your self-esteem and confidence. You came in very vibrant, everyone looked at you, even the investors were like, this is the guy. But clearly, when you look at your accounts, and then for you, that's what you identify with. You can no longer speak up, you no longer... Because again, there are so many factors that are in consideration of why, as a founder, you cannot speak up. There is the biological aspect, where you come from, the family you come from, already determined that for you. Then the culture. Muganda, Munyankore, from Gulu, that already is in the picture. Then there is the environment you operate in. All those factors coming together, and then there is, of course, the sex differences of females, those ones, Lugambo, gossip. They easily open up, they will talk. Men, to get one beer, not 1, 2, 3, right? And then while you're there drinking, you burst out, hey, I'm done, I'm tired. Then the next day when they remind you, hey, by the way, you said you were tired. Did you mean it? No, it was just alcohol. But indeed, you're really tired. Because once you drink that alcohol, it kind of sheds off that consciousness that you have right now. You see how you're steady? Right now, you're all steady. But I'm very sure if, we were at experiment, you would really know people's emotions, okay? And so there's also that. But also there is the fact that we live in a paternalistic society that men lead. So there is no room for men or for leaders. Even when they are women and they are the ones leading the pack, they also adopt the same paternalistic leadership that how can a woman be seen frailing or vulnerable? No. Even when she's dying, she will close that door in there, first cry if she has to cry, and then she will apply makeup, and then show up again, okay? And that's what we have adopted, okay? But we are saying, listen, there is another way to still do your business, okay? Still thrive, still cope, still be resilient without necessarily losing your mind. Because there is no founder without their mental health. If your mental health is very compromised, okay, then your business will take the hit too. And businesses, on the other hand, businesses can survive. They can always survive, right? It has its season, right? It will be low, but it will always pull out. But once mental health goes into a crisis, I can't tell you that there is any money that can bring you back. Just to answer you, Ronnie, when you say that 20 billion Ugandan shillings would be what would trigger you, I bet that cannot even be enough to treat you, because you take into consideration. So one person who gets mental illness affects 6 other people in their immediate cycle. So your spouse, your children, 6 people at home. And each of those 6 people affects another 6 people in their immediate cycle. So you tell me, would 20 billion really be able to treat all that cycle? No. And we are not talking about that it is like malaria or you're going for surgery. No. It is your thoughts that get sick. It is your feelings get sick. Do you know each other's feelings right now as we're having this conversation? What about their thoughts? But then they get sick. I was telling Amanda that I've never treated a mad person. Never. I'm yet to, if I ever meet that person, I will be glad. But I've never treated a mad person. All the people I've treated is because they are sick. Right? So there is that faulting to self of like, it's my fault, the business didn't survive, it's my fault, the investor is pulling out. Because again of the things that I've already mentioned. Okay? So because of that and other factors of chronic sleep deprivation, loneliness, isolation, excessive use of alcohol and substance abuse, lack of mentorship, connection with people. Come again? And yes, exercise, the lack of exercise, poor nutrition, all those factors come into play, right? So by the time you start to behave awkwardly in regards to where you come from, your culture, it has taken years of your thoughts and feelings get sick. So what if, like right now, if we're seated here and someone amongst us, one pulls out their, like they remove their clothes, you'd not be like, hey! No. For me to be, this has taken time to develop because we are who we are right now because of our thoughts. The way we are seated here, we are all who we are because of our thoughts, right? And those thoughts influence our feelings. And those feelings influence our behavior towards each other, towards your spouse, towards the children, towards... You understand?
I'd like to ask you a question. So you said your thoughts get sick, yeah? So how do I know, or how do you know that your thoughts are sick, right? And then how do you know that you're behaving awkwardly? And also, what is the gauge? Not so. Because honestly speaking, so many times, many of us do not know. I have been in spaces where maybe when someone is talking, a certain community say, as a woman like me, I am vocal. And then there are communities or spaces where people are saying, that woman is mad because you're being vocal. You are speaking your mind. I've been in spaces where maybe they'll tell women, be yourself, be who you are. I've been in maybe like civil society spaces and they're telling people, why are you wearing a bra? You're a woman. Just, be you. Show up. So you're there moving without a bra, you're no more. Or maybe they're saying, so if men are not shaving, why are you putting women on pressure to shave? Small things like those. Now, in that space, it's normal. In this space, probably as a doctor, you could be thinking we are mad when we don't know. So, so I'm just wondering, what is the gauge?
So those are very provoking questions, okay? I'll start with Marion. So not long ago, I also host a podcast called Hikima Podcast. And probably the last episode that we did was exactly on that statistic that, it was 14% of Ugandans are mad. So you will have, for any eligible scientist to sit before people and say 14% of Ugandans are mad, you must provide context, right? So if I went into let me try to relate it with the kind of work that you do, okay? Let's say that your organization you welcome tourists, okay? And while you welcome tourists, there is a survey they fill in to show that your company is performing good or performing, but in relation to them, okay? And these tourists are UK, USA. And then Amanda comes and looks at your data of how they've been feeling and says, all operators, right? They are bad, depending on using your data, okay? So of course it will cause an alarm, right, within the country, okay? So for us, so when you look at that statistic, someone went into the hospital records, okay? It's possible if you went in really, you will say that, things are bad. But so you would have to report it in context to the hospital and also what we call the sample space of the people that you're looking at, okay? So it's not, I cannot say it was wrong or it was inappropriate, right? But you would need to understand the methodology with which they used to report that statistic. 2, Amanda asks, so how do you know that your thoughts are sick? Do you have to wait until you're announced that you're against? No. So the things I'm going to mention, they should have persisted for more than 2 weeks, right? You have fatigue despite you resting. You have poor sleep or you have sleep disturbances despite you using all the other remedies. You have exercised, you have eaten well, you have winded down on screen time, but melatonin, by the time you start melatonin, you have gone an extra step ahead because naturally as we are seated here, when it clocks 7 p.m., your brain will start. So the sunset here is usually around 6:45. So by 7, that's when the darkness. So the moment the darkness comes in, your body is automatically programmed to start producing melatonin. So melatonin is something that you produce. So the melatonin in the tablets is just like more of a supplement to what your body is producing, okay? So you have sleep disturbances, you have appetite problems or appetite changes. You used to have your good appetite, but these days even you forget to eat. You're forgetful. You're excessively worried about almost everything. Even the tiny fear is okay, but you're excessively worried. You cannot pinpoint on what is exactly causing you fear. You have lost your libido. You've lost your libido. Now it's been more than 2 weeks. I saw that as well, but I'm not here to point fingers, okay? You have difficulty concentrating at work. You have decision fatigue. Like you're now very indecisive about so many things that might require you to make decisions. You have lost your motivation. Like the time, so you used to be by 6 you're in office. Now, waking up, going to the bathroom to shower takes about like 2 hours. Like you're there debating, you're on TikTok, you're scrolling through social media, then you're like, let me again sleep. Okay? But you take time to come out. For men, you're more irritable than usual. Right? You're very irritable. Small mistake, you can build a mountain out of it, okay? You've found yourself withdrawing from family, from colleagues, from your spouse, from your children, okay? Your productivity at work has also reduced. And your increase of using alcohol and substance use has also increased. But thoughts about life, you feel like it's better off dead. You've had that thought, and this time it's more rampant, okay? And just keep it boiling, okay? And so that's when you know that your thoughts are getting sicker. The more, and I've said that if they persist for 2 weeks, if it's more than 2 weeks and what I've mentioned just seems to be, you like, these days now your focus is on the negatives. You no longer see anything. If they say, you will say, in fact, if you introduce, you're like, things are bad. You'll not even consider that you're still alive. You'll be like, things, bibi nyo. Okay? As the weeks go by, what I've mentioned keeps on to be taking over your life. Okay? That's one. Now, behavior. So let's say your thoughts started getting sick now, right? Your behavior will change about 10 years later. Okay? Depending on your environmental risk factors. There's a report that came out around March, February, the state of the nation, right? Which was about mental health status of Ugandans, right? It says 1 in 4 people already has a mental health challenge. So you count 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1 in 4 already has a mental health challenge. That's one. 2 is that by the age of 14 years, you have already developed a mental health challenge. So what it means is that by the time we clocked 14, me and you, we already had a mental health challenge. And again, I need us to keep reminding ourselves about the conversation I said we're on a mental health continuum. You having a mental health challenge, right, does not exclude you from surviving or thriving or coping.
Does that make sense?
But by the age of 14, you already had a mental health challenge. It was not mental illness, but a mental health challenge. It can be that, you're still grieving, because grief is a process. It's a journey. It's not a destination. Just because you lost your father 20 years ago does not mean that when they ask you to talk about it, you won't tear. You will. Okay? You've lost business. You failed in academics. You were bullied. You were called names. So you already developed a mental health challenge. So I keep thinking that maybe God was the best scientist that has ever existed. Yeah. Reason being that while we are seated here, in 1 second you have about 10,000 thoughts that are coming through your mind. And it does not mean that all those thoughts are allowed to come to the conscious state. No. So while they are developing, your brain already has a mechanism to sieve out which one should come for you to think about and act on it, and okay? So that's one. It is happening without your control, okay? It's already happening. But 2 is that 2 is that like you said, we have these negative thoughts from time to time, and it's normal to have them, okay? Because they, again, from the time you're born, when you're crying, that time you're crying. Child is crying, then there's a delay in getting breast milk, there's a delay in getting love. So all those are mental health challenges? No. All those shape your resilience, shape your thought process, okay? And some of them are out of your control, isn't it? Like, let's say a child is crying and the mother is outside. At some point, they will learn to keep quiet, right? Even there's a time when the child falls down and guess what they say? Look away. So the child looks for safety, like someone to say, oh, sorry, and finds that no one is watching them. They're like, yo, man, I need to pick up my shit. So they start to learn then, because it's also part of growth, okay? So a little stress is good for production, is good for developing like sheer resilience. It's good, okay? So that falling down, it's not that they have broken their leg, but it's more like, I need to pick up and go, Okay? So it's part of life, okay? So having negative thoughts, it happens all the time, and it's okay. What I'm saying is that these thoughts, when these thoughts are a constant, for you, everything you're seeing around you is negative. Because while you say, you can, I know I won't use you, Amanda, but you can look at someone and be like, man, they're ugly. But then at some point you look at someone else and you're like, oh man, they're looking good. Okay? That's normal. The thing is to feel that's ugly. He's ugly. They're ugly. This room is even very dirty. Life has no meaning. I'm better off dead. Like everything. Even when you ask them, has there anything good that has happened? They will say no. Nothing. Completely. But you woke up today. They'll be like, no, I wish I was even dead. I didn't want to wake up. I wanted that I should die. So those are the kind of negative thoughts I'm talking about. Okay?
Okay, before we have Evelyn, I want to also ask you, doctor, how is your mental health on a scale of 1 to 10? Because you're the doctor. Because I want us to go to our next question we had, and that was about this being Men's Month and how important mental health is to men. What makes it especially hard for men, male founders, in particular, to talk about how they are really doing? We are, of course, not excluding the women founders, but this is the month's theme. So I'd love to hear from you. Starting with yourself. Let's all check in on you, how you're doing as a man. And then you can invite other men to actually talk about themselves and how they're doing and encourage them on how they can cope or deal with it. I don't believe in surviving things. I believe in thriving in them. So we would have a conversation about how men can thrive with their mental health.
This evening, I feel I'm at a 6 out of 10. I feel so the last 2 weeks, I've probably been operating on a 3 out of 10. Okay? Because again, you need to understand that the strongest leaders are not the ones that show that they don't struggle, right? And every time so in those 2 weeks, all I did was show up. Half empty, half full, I showed up. And I would tell my team that today, I'm just only showing up. Anything that might need my mental decision making, that one is out in the window. I don't have it today, but I'm here. Yeah. So that kind of helped my team to also be able to learn to tell me when they are struggling. Like say, today we usually say, what's your rate out of 10? Is it 10 being like things are bad? Like I'm not having my shit together today. 1 being that bring it on, anything, let you just send me out. So I find that has helped the team to cope up better. But to answer the question, so Men's Mental Health Month. So this month was declared by WHO about 2 years ago. And again, the focus was on the statistics. But, men don't talk much. The culture and the society doesn't allow them to be vulnerable, among others. So as founders, it's very tricky for you to... So you already have your biological, social, then the norms, right? Depending on where you come from, and then you're a founder. It's there's like a mismatch between whether you should open up and tell your investor that you're struggling mentally or you're struggling to get the business running, vis-a-vis being honest with yourself and saying, you know what, I want actually to really take a break. So. And because of those mismatches between where we come from and the spaces we operate in, most times we don't even talk to each other as founders to say, man, I'm struggling, okay? I probably would need support in terms of how do I go about these challenges. And I guess that's why we have spaces like this to know that, 1, you're not alone, and 2, that it's not your fault. If for anything, it's not your fault that you're struggling. I would like to think it's seasons. We have seasons, right? You have a season of struggling, season of harvesting, and we again, again, conversations that usually. So again, you have to understand the different cultural or the different societal prejudicial sayings that have been okay. So it's okay for like Amanda to say that men have, they're in different seasons, and it will not have any uproar until Ronnie says the same towards women. And that will be on TikTok, Twitter, right? And Ronnie will probably be penalized for that. Because again, that's what society has said, that it has said that men should have emotional restraint. They should have emotional restraint. There's nothing like nature. Everything that we have learned. Why I was probably invited was to talk to you, founders who happen also to be both sexes. So there's the sex part and there's the gender part. And from your conversations, you kept on mixing gender roles and sex differences. I came ready to talk, but I'm leaving when I've been taught more. That's for sure. Because conversations in such a space are not just conversations. I wasn't sure what I should expect from entrepreneurs. If anything, I tried to read about entrepreneurship. And so my parting shot is that your greatest asset is not your capital. It's not your technology. It's not the 20 billion shillings. Your greatest asset is your mental health. Yeah. Thank you.